Let's see what we're going to grab from the trolley. And let's see what Susie has swiftly removed there before it collapses into the public bar. What have we got?
I've got a strawberry and lime cider from Kopparberg, Swedish, and you can also get a non-alcoholic version if you prefer.
So no apples and no alcohol at all?
There are apples in it, but there's also strawberry and lime flavouring too. But there is alcohol version or a non-alcohol version.
OK, well, I'll have a non-alcohol version, please, for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Responsible.
Today's confession comes from Travis Arbuthnot, brackets, not my real name.
Oh dear.
Really?
Just in case there was any doubt.
Yeah.
Simon and the assembled judiciaries, forgive me, for I have sinned. I have carried this guilt for 36 years, and I can do so no longer. My story goes back to 1988 and involves sensitive areas of military operations. For this reason, names and locations have been changed or omitted to protect the innocent. And more importantly, the guilty, which is me. At the time, I was an electronics engineer working in a civilian branch of Her Majesty's Intelligence Services.
Oh, wow.
Spy.
We don't get many
Thanks,
from the
Matt.
intelligence services, I have to say. I was very pleased to be chosen to go on an exercise somewhere south of the equator. That's vague. Half the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To assist in my agency's intelligence mission. This is fantastically vague. Our operation was based in a secure building guarded 24/7 by barbed wire and 2 armed sentries. Once we got past the security desk, we had to enter a combination into a combination lock to actually gain access to the building. Once inside the building, we then had to open a second combination lock in order to reach our inner sanctum. The combination was changed daily, and it was apparent to all that security was very tight. Apparent to all, that is, except me. I had grave concerns about these combination locks. They had 5 buttons labelled 1 to 5. But the combinations were only 3 digits long. Now, it doesn't take a genius to work out, therefore, that there were only 125 combinations. Fewer, in fact, because you couldn't push the same button twice in a row. But let's, for the sake of argument, say there were 125 combinations. I reckon I could type in 3 digits and then try the lock all inside of 2 seconds. 3 at the most. Again, simple maths would tell you I could try 20 combinations in a minute. Therefore, I could go through every single combination, I hope you're following this, in 6 minutes and 15 seconds. Using the law of averages, I also assumed that the successful attempt would be somewhere around the middle of that. So these combination locks that were guarding so many restricted areas throughout all of the services could be beaten by sheer trial and error in 3 minutes. This seemed utterly preposterous to me, and I really couldn't believe that it was actually the case. But yes, my calculations were correct. The locks were not safe. As a conscientious young civil servant, I thought I should bring this to the attention of my superiors. I imagined them listening to my story with incredulity, and then me proving it to them in a live demonstration, at which point, amid gasps of astonishment, I would be profusely thanked for bringing this lapse of security to light, heartily congratulated for being vigilant and attentive to our country's security needs. Heads would no doubt roll in the security division, but for me, there would surely be medals. An MBE, I expected. I would be made senior security consultant with a 6-figure salary, no need to pop into work more than once or twice a week. I'm sure it doesn't end like this. I just needed to prove my theory to myself first. As luck would have it, there was another door in our inner sanctum that was protected by one of these 5-digit combination locks. An ideal opportunity. At around 10:30 one morning, my 2 colleagues went for a coffee break, whilst I opted to stay in our ops room. Once they had left, I checked my watch, and as the second hand hit 12, I began my assault on the door. 1, 2, 3, check. 1, 2, 4, check. 1, 2, 5, check. I began going sequentially through every 3-digit combination, excited at the prospect that at some point the lock definitely would succumb to my onslaught. I was even going faster than 3 seconds per attempt. This was going so well. On about my 12th attempt, the door suddenly opened from the other side. There before me stood a tall, muscular-looking fellow in fatigues. He looked me up and down and then asked me what the devil I was doing. I've changed this slightly. At that precise moment, it suddenly dawned on me exactly what I was doing. I was trying to break into the SAS Communication Centre. Yes, that SAS. Their room was a sanctum within another sanctum, within a guarded compound, each sanctum protected by these 5-digit combination locks. And I was trying to break into it. All notions of MBEs and tea with the Queen evaporated. My legs felt weak and I got that nauseous feeling that you get when you know you're in deep, deep trouble. The only head that would be rolling would be mine. However, the SAS chap listened to my garbled and panicked explanation before calling me a silly person and advising that I didn't do anything so flipping silly in the future. Advice I am pleased to tell you I took on board. Now, so here we go. I need to ask forgiveness, not from the SAS chap, because he forgave me almost straight away. He had clearly dealt with idiots before. I ask forgiveness from Her Majesty's Armed Forces Security Agency, who selected these locks in the full knowledge that because multiple buttons can be pushed at once, a fact that I was unaware of, they actually offer up to 2,626 combinations.
Right.
I would like to thank the SAS man for realising that I was no master spy, simply a well-intentioned buffoon who had his nation's safety and security and his own medals as his motivation. I beg absolution from the panel and promise to be good from now on. I remain, sir, your long-standing follower since 1986 and Radio 1 days, in fact. OK, well, that's very nice. Thank you for being there. That was the start of breakfast. Anyway.
Yes.
Travis is clearly a very wise and sensible person. But to try and break into an SAS strong room, I think this is sort of daft behaviour. Sister Susie, what do you say?
Well, I think Travis is very, very silly. It just wasn't his job, really, was it? He was an electronics engineer. He wasn't in charge of security or anything at all. And I hear you. If you have an issue, raise it. But the problem you went wrong is you needed to prove your theory, and that's where I think your dreams of being James Bond kind of took over.
Yes.
And you should probably have just left it to the security people who obviously knew what they were doing. So I'm sorry, Travis, but I can't forgive you. You wasted some people's time and it was just a bit silly.
If Ben McIntyre is listening, he's got a new book about the SAS storming of the Iranian embassy. This is exactly the kind of contact that he needs.
Yes, he does.
An insider like Travis Arbuthnot.
Quite right.
What do you say, brother?
I'm going to forgive. And the reason why is because I'm actually happy with this, the outcome of this story, in that it sounds like the inner sanctum wasn't being protected by just a combination lock, which, frankly, combination lock, I was using that to lock up my grifter in the 80s. So I would hope that our security services would have something better than just the old combination lock there, and they've got something that's got 2,000 different sequences you have to get through. So I'm definitely going to forgive. Who does wins a combination lock, and for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Just thought you crowbar in the SAS motto. Okay, so another split decision here. It's entirely down to you. Does Travis get your forgiveness? 61054 for the people's verdict. 61054, and the first word is Simon. For the news, an SAS-themed confession from Travis Arbuthnot, electronics engineer working with the intelligence agencies somewhere south of the equator. And to prove his theory that the combination locks that he was being confronted with were inadequate, he decided to try and break into what turned out to be the SAS stronghold that he was confronted by an SAS man who told him he was a fool. As indeed are some of the listeners. What's the verdict?
So Sammy says, not forgiven. He was wasting everyone's time. Why didn't he tell anyone before trying the lock? Belinda says, I have to forgive this one. Poor Travis. He just wanted to live his James Bond dream. I'd have done the same in his position.
No, you
and Dal from Portland in Dorset says, I forgive him, though he is more like Brooke Bond than James Bond.
Okay, very good. That's kind of sense of humour that appeals to you.
Love it.
If you have a confession, particularly if you work in the intelligence agencies, send it in. Anonymity guaranteed. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Time to grab something as it flies past from the drinks trolley. What are we taking today, Sister Susie?
Well, I've grabbed 3 hot chocolates with whipped cream on top. And if Matt so wishes, he could have a little nip of whiskey in his, if he likes.
Why not?
You can have my hot chocolate.
Oh, right. Oh, do you not like hot chocolate?
No.
What?
Chocolate in a bar.
Tasty.
Chocolate is to be consumed in a bar, not in a drink.
Oh, I'll certainly have yours.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow,
no, it's
you're
yummy.
missing out.
Okay, we'll have an argument about that in a moment. But first of all, to the business in hand. Today's confession comes from Anne. Bless me, Father Simon, and the synod of redemption, for I have sinned. It has been many years since my last confession, and I am nearing the end of my career. And I feel it's time to own up to my sin from the past. It was the 1980s, the halcyon days of my youth. A time of new romantics, vinyl records, puffball skirts, no national curriculum, no Ofsted. You can tell she's in education.
Yes.
And long before the introduction of the internet, let alone the development of artificial intelligence with which to produce or just assist you with your homework. Mm-hmm. Not only did we have to handwrite our essays, but if we needed to research something, we'd have to visit a library and read an actual book.
Okay.
If we'd forgotten to visit the school library, we'd actually have to go into town and find the information that we needed, and no one had time for that. Looking back, and with the benefit of hindsight, I can see that my geography teacher, let's call her Miss Johnson, was not long out of teacher training college and was maybe a little wet behind the ears. But I was a model student and never gave her any issues to doubt my integrity. Well, Father Simon, how wrong she was. We had been studying, I'm not sure why, the agricultural practices of different African countries, knowledge that as a teenager from the Midlands really felt a world away from the kind of things I really needed to obtain. Like, who fancied who and what record was going to be number one in the charts that week. Consequently, I'd not really been listening in class and had certainly not bothered to go to the library or do some shock horror proper learning. Well, all teenagers will identify with this one, so it was that I found myself scratching my head slightly as it dawned on me that I had an essay due in the following day and hadn't a clue what to write. It was in this slightly perplexed state that my dad found me, staring at a blank piece of paper that evening. In his youth, he'd been in the Merchant Navy and was notorious as a man who never turned down an opportunity to make mischief. On one occasion, he managed to send a donkey up in a lift to the officer's ball and made himself scarce as it proceeded to run amok and fertilise the floor.
Oh.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Seeing my look of despair, my dad asked me what the problem was. I'm struggling with my geography homework, Dad. I don't know what to write. My dad, who was by no means an academic, but he had seen the world, he graduated from the School of Life and all that. However, I was a little bit surprised when he read the title of the essay and informed me this was easy. The title was, "Why Do Tribes of the Masai Mara Move Their Cattle in a Nomadic Way?" I was more than a little surprised and extremely pleased that my dad was going to help me out. He said, "As you know, I was brought up on a farm, and this is quite close to home. These farmers are subsistence farmers," he said, "and the loss of a single cow can make the difference between life and death to their families. They therefore need to take every precaution to take the cattle healthy, to keep them healthy, and to avoid one of East Africa's most dangerous hazards. If a cow is bitten by a certain insect, then the cow will go off its legs, and there is a good chance that it will not recover and die. The name of this most feared creature is the goosey fly, and it is the most dangerous animal in the whole of Africa. Forget the lion, forget the hippopotamus, forget the leopard. No, the most deadly beast on the continent is a tiny biting insect. Can be found near stagnant sources of water, so it's vital that the Maasai move their cattle on a regular basis in order to keep them healthy. If the fly bites, it'll inject a parasite into the cow's bloodstream, and the parasite could pass straight through the animal and then infect the others in the herd." My dad then went on to outline the life cycle of the goosey fly and how even drinking from infected stagnant water could be disastrous for the cattle and thus their farmers and the families. Well, I looked up, tears of gratitude in my eyes, having scribbled down his pearls of wisdom. Miss Johnson hadn't mentioned any of this information which she'd been droning on. How fortunate, I thought, that his extensive travels around the world and his farming background perfectly aligned just when I needed his knowledge the most. I managed to turn our chat into some sort of written format, and I handed my homework in the following day. Grateful I dodged a bullet, I thought no more of farming techniques in Africa until the following week. And the next geography lesson saw our homework returned to us. Miss Johnson commented on each of my friends' efforts with levels of praise for some and exhortations to try harder for others. And then came the moment. "Anne, stand up," she said. "This girl has gone above and beyond the requirements of the course." Don't know why she spoke like a priest.
Yes. Yeah.
"She has researched this subject extremely well, and I'm hugely proud of her work. A star."
Wow.
Wow.
Father Simon, I suspect that this incident played a huge part in my decision to do A-level geography.
Oh.
I was by no means a natural in it, as shown by me scraping a pass at the end of sixth form. Probably this should not be much of a surprise, as the goosey fly does not exist, other than as a figment of my father's vivid imagination, as I'm sure you might have guessed. After being a head teacher of more than 20 years standing, I would like to seek forgiveness. Not from Miss Johnson, who really should have been more up to date with the syllabus that she was about to teach. Not from the Maasai tribesmen, who I doubt ever worried about the effects of the goosey fly, because there weren't any, but from my fellow classmates who actually had done some notes and had taken some time to learn and go to the library rather than relying on their father's gift for generating mischief. Well, I kind of suspected that Anne was going to be a teacher of some kind, bearing in mind that she was very strong about the curriculum and AI and teacher training college and that kind of thing. But anyway, well done to Anne's dad, the Goosey Fly. A fantastic bit of work. What do you say, Sister Susie?
I really like this, Anne, and there are a few reasons why I like this. And I like that, this kind of led to you to what you were doing now. And maybe if it wasn't for that story that your dad made up, maybe you wouldn't be in the career that you're in now. And isn't that an excellent thing? And I also like that your dad and you bonded over this too. And maybe I'm just feeling a bit soft today, but I think I'm going to forgive you.
Okay. The Goosey Fly, very, very useful. Matt, what do you say?
Yes, clearly this is a confession before the days of Google, isn't it? Because obviously Anne would have gone Goosey Fly, let me look that up, and worked out it didn't exist. And Mrs. Johnson as well, she would have worked out it didn't exist. But the internet wasn't around. So my instinct is, it would be very easy to say, oh, Mrs. Johnson, she should have known. But my instinct is Miss Johnson had to read so many very dull essays from everyone else in the class about why the nomadic tribes were nomadic, and finally she gets one about the Goosey Fly. I've never heard of that before. This sounds great. Let's give her an A star. So in that way, didn't everyone win? And actually, it turns out Anne wasn't very good at geography anyway, so she lost out at the end. So she shouldn't be punished twice. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, all right. I got lost somewhere. Anyway, double forgiveness, rare double forgiveness in the studio. What do you make of that? Do you forgive Anne for a confession? 61054. Before the news, we had a confession from Anne, and it was a story about how Anna's dad helped her out with some homework by making up a story of the Goosey Fly. So Anna got an A star for her geography homework and went on to be not very good at geography. Anyway, cheating at homework. Matt, what does the people's verdict tell us?
Everyone forgives tonight. Okay. Cecilia says, I enjoyed that story, and I have to say that Dad wasn't so wrong. I grew up in Kenya and around the Maasai. There is a fly that can be destructive to cattle. It's the tsetse fly, so not bad all round. Vicky in Northampton, forgiven. Of course parents help with homework. As the owner of a PhD in geography, nothing's given me more pleasure than helping my parents with my daughters with assignments. Her Year 5 project was judged of GCSE standard, and I'm certain that the teachers knew and appreciated the collaborative learning. Nicola in Southampton says, absolutely forgiven. I would regularly rope my dad in to help with my homework. In art, we were asked to draw a self-portrait, so I convinced my dad that the art teacher actually wanted a parent to sketch us, so if we could see if we got our skills from our parents. My dad fell for it. I got an A star and my first Endeavour stamp in my book.
Okay, was the phrase collaborative learning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, sir, I didn't cheat. It was collaborative learning.
Correct, yeah.
Very good. Thank you for all of those. If you have a confession for us, send us in, please. We'll swap it for a smart speaker if we use it. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Right now, we just need a refreshment. So let's just rumble in with the drinks trolley. What have you selected for us today, Suze?
Well, I am going to have a very large glass of Tempranillo, a nice warming Spanish red for when I finish work later on. So I'll share that with you if you like.
What, share your glass?
Well, no, I'll share the bottle. Then we can have
share
a glass each.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, that's fine. Yeah. 3 glasses, thank you very much, but only after work.
Yes.
Let's check in with today's confession. Another smart speaker to be handed out, this time to Alistair, who says, Father Simon and the Confessional Collective, I hope to be safe from any future court proceedings.
Hopefully.
Or prosecution, yes. As this story dates back to the naughty 90s. Was that a thing?
No, it wasn't.
It's also not that long ago.
No, it was not.
The person concerned may have passed away to another world, or at least not care anymore.
Okay, again.
Okay.
A degree of some uncertainty, I think, here. My story starts when I worked as the overseas sales rep for a removals company at its Edinburgh depot. We had a regular annual audit from the head office, which was based in Enfield, down there in London. The accountant who was posted to us for the week was a Mr. B. We're just going to call him Mr. B, who was frankly, a morbid man and also a Scottish hater. And he wasn't too happy about being posted to Scotland for the week. I suspect that's probably why they did it. Who doesn't like going to Edinburgh? I know, Mr. B. Let's send him there to do the annual audit. So on Monday morning, Mr. B arrives along with his black BMW 323i. Hello. He parked his car in front of the storage warehousing, which was against the company's unwritten rule of never parking on the forecourt of the warehouse, as it was needed 24/7 for loading vehicles. Mr. B, who knew this, had recently opted out of the company car scheme and was overly very proud of his car, as he had paid extra for his BMW 323i.
Okay, I think we all know things are going badly for the 323i,
Do you
aren't
think?
they? Yeah.
When a visiting HGV driver
There it is.
entered our reception asking who owned the car parked on the forecourt, Mr. B jumped to his feet and said, "Is that the black BMW 323i with all the extras?" "Yes," replied the angry driver. "Move it." You can tell I'm doing all the accents today.
Yeah, you are.
Same happened on Tuesday, same happened on Wednesday, and by Thursday, the office, but mainly me, we were absolutely furious with Mr. B. We could not stand him anymore, and so I hatched my plan. I went to another office and I phoned Mr. B's desk. And then I put on a different voice.
Oh, really?
But for
I wonder whether it was a Cockney voice. Let's find out.
Well, no, well, you'll see why it can't be.
Okay.
So I'm saying here, "You're a hard man to track down," said Sergeant Hamish MacLeod. That's me. To Mr. B. "I'm calling as that's the police, the local police, obviously the Edinburgh police.
Yeah.
Have been notified by DVLA of your recent purchase of a BMW 323i. Could you come down, please, to the nearest police traffic office to have the vehicle seized as evidence in the future trial?"
What trial?
Screamed Scottish-hating Mr. B. Well, Sergeant Hamish MacLeod explained that his car is what they call a cut and shut, meaning it is two written-off cars welded together to make an illegal new vehicle. Well, it was a busy afternoon and I forgot to tell Mr. B about this prank call, but we did have a good old laugh that night in the pub. I don't think you had any intention of telling him at any stage. Friday morning came. Mr. B pulls up to the office in a clapped-out Ford Escort banger. Upon further questioning, Mr. B explained the previous day's phone call, and he mocked the police that he was not going to hand over his beloved BMW 323i for free. So, said Mr. B proudly, he had taken his BMW to the local Kinross car market and had it auctioned the previous evening. But he'd lost many thousands of pounds and could only afford this car, the clapped-out one. But still, he'd beaten the police and he'd saved some money in the end. Well, sorry, not sorry to have pranked you, Mr. B, but you had it coming and I duly delivered. However, I did receive free tickets to attend Simon Mayo's Confessions TV show on the BBC in 1997, but I smelt the setup and I declined.
Right.
Curses. We'd have had you good and proper. Anyway, but now is the time to clear my conscience and ask for the British people's forgiveness at this anorak of a man. Well, we could have got you on the television a long time ago, but no, Alistair's finally decided that now is the time to confess everything, that it was indeed him who, this has cost Mr. B a lot of money. Thousands of pounds worth of money, although he did take the mickey out of the Edinburgh police. Let's check in with Sister Susie.
Well, Alistair, do you know what? I was on his side for a little while of that. You know, I don't think it's very nice to hate Scottish people, so Mr. B didn't sound very nice, and I was nearly there. However, I'm just not a fan of pranks, and I just think that he didn't really want forgiveness, did he? And I just don't think he had any intention of admitting to what he did either, and I think for that reason I can't forgive him, even though I kind of understand why he did it.
I think he's quite pleased with this prank, even if he didn't get to confess to it on national television. Anyway, brother from another gutter.
Yes, he should have come on the telly, really, shouldn't he? But I'm going to forgive. And here's why. Because Mr. B was flouting the rules, wasn't he? Yet another one of these officials up high in companies who think they can flout all the rules. Well, not this time. And also, he thought he was going to diddle the police out of the money for the car, didn't he? Well, no, because karma came for you, Mr. B, in the form of a BMW 323i. lie, which you were obviously very attached to.
The karma ran over his dogma.
Very good. Well done. So for that reason, for that pun, I'm going to forgive.
The Kinross car market are the people who come out of this best.
They do very well, don't they?
Anyway, It's the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Alistair for his crime which cost Mr. B many thousands of pounds? 61054, first word is silent. Forgiveness or no for Alistair? 61054, first word is silent. Just before the news, we had a rocky confession from Alistair, who basically, because he was fed up with Mr. B, who'd come up from London to head office of the company in Edinburgh, he was so fed up he pretended to be Sergeant Hamish MacLeod of the Edinburgh Police. Actually, when I think about it, impersonating the police, that's not a good thing, is it? Anyway, and he said that his new and much-loved BMW was actually a cut and shut, 2 written-off cars welded together. So Mr. B just sold it at the Kinross car market and bought an old banger. Anyway, that's what happened, and the people's verdict is in.
So Sam in Cardiff says, forgiven, as Matt says. He was flouting the rules. He didn't give his car to the police, and he didn't park his BMW where he was supposed to. Linda in Lowestoft, not forgiven, only because I've got a thing against prank calls, so not very nice. And this whole confession spiraled out of control with one lie. And finally, got to forgive this one. Mr. B sounds like an absolute nightmare. Who hates the Scots? From Jan, a proud Scottish lady in Glasgow.
Well, I think Jan's absolutely right. Okay, so thank you very much indeed for that. And your confession, please, confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. 4 and 7,
No.
because that would be kind of rude to say. Anyway, it's 1:45, and there goes the drinks trolley. So what have we grabbed from the drinks trolley today, Suze?
Well, I'm going to treat myself tonight to a classic martini, which is basically gin and vermouth in different parts. And I'm going to go with Sipsmith Lemon Drizzle gin, because it's very tasty if you have a martini with a twist of lemon peel, which I'm sure Matt will enjoy.
Yes.
And stir it over ice. None of this shaking nonsense, because it just dilutes it.
No.
Okay, all right. I've never had one, so...
Martini?
No, never had one.
Oh,
It's very
fabulous.
delicious.
I'll keep one for after the show, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
For the journey home. That'll go well on the tube, won't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Today's confession comes from WizKid. Thanks, WizKid, for sending this in. Father Simon and the Fearsome Three. With the summer season drawing to an end at about now, I thought I might recall my end of summer tale too. And being one of your youngest confessors for a while, being only 16, you might be interested that the youth still get up to mischief. I think we knew that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Firstly, you must understand that my family is built on lots of laughter, many jokes, and a fair few funny ideas. And this is the time that one of these crazy ideas that we came up with was actually carried out. Secondly, me and my family live on the south coast, and we've lived there for decades. And for the first 10 years of my life, spent many a time in Portsmouth. Our summer holidays every year have consisted of taking the Channel ferries to France or Spain out of the harbour. The open decks of the ships that travel in and out, one of the best ways to see the sights of the city. One year when coming back from holiday in Brittany, I found myself on my own on the top deck, staring out towards the city. I noticed an oldish-looking couple, maybe in their 40s.
I was so old.
Oldish.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Leaning on the railing and staring out too. Then I overheard them discussing, what do you think that is, when pointing at the ancient gunning posts from Henry VIII's reign. Being 11, I immediately decided I should be the one to step in and put them right. Hello there, I squeaked.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about
Lovely.
Portsmouth?
Wow.
Okay, I'll lose that. That'd be annoying.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you about this great city, I said. Their faces changed. This couple now seemed keen to listen. I proceeded to tell them about Southsea Castle, the Spinnaker Tower, famous historic docklands, their naval importance, quoting mildly interesting facts about various past wars and their current significance with the British Navy. I got quite into it, and being quite a nerdy 11-year-old boy, the poor old couple may have been starting to regret their choice to stand next to me. Anyway, the couple told me eventually that they had to go. They wished me goodbye and thanked me for their amazing tour of Portsmouth. My dad was standing just behind me and congratulated me on giving a tour to these folks. He joked that I should have charged them, and we went back inside. And we went back inside, full stop.
Full stop.
Skip forward a few years, and our family, me now 14 years old, my sister, mum and dad, were all going back on holiday to France on the same ferry. We'd all theorised ways to make our holiday funnier. Now, this is where I have to say these are all daft ideas. Wearing fake moustaches to passport control, for example.
Don't do that.
I mean, you you get arrested. Putting on strange accents to confuse the French. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
My dad reminded us of when I toured that couple around the city from the boat. He suggested doing it again, however, this time throwing in a few fake facts. Not enough to look like an idiot, but enough for it to seem believable when merged with real facts. On our return ferry coming into Portsmouth, therefore, at the end of this holiday, on the top deck of the ship, whilst my family watched on in the distance, I walked the length of the ship looking down the line of tourists, wondering which lot would be gullible enough. Eventually, I found myself standing next to a mother and her teenage son. They were having a similar conversation to the previous time. What's that thing with the flashing lights? Do you think that it's a fun fair or some brightly coloured market? I judge this is my time to strike. Do you know anything about Portsmouth? My voice had broken. I know, I'm 14.
Yeah.
No, we're on holiday from the Midlands, the woman exclaimed in her heavily accented voice. But not
really?
by me.
Oh, right.
We don't know much about Portsmouth. Well, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Well, would you like me to explain what is what? I replied, and I pointed back right out to sea and to where the lights were. Well, that is Clarence Pier, the only pier, I said, made of balsa wood in the world. Then there's the amusement arcade on the seafront where you can still win a chicken.
Win a chicken?
And also one of the few Wimpies left in the UK where if you go dressed as a sausage, you get a free fizzy drink.
Okay.
Well, the mother and son looked at each other. Then the mother started remarking on Wimpy and their favourite dishes. And then when passing a seafront pub, I said, and that pub over there is, according to legend, Charles Darwin's favourite pub. And his favourite chair is still there as well, where he wrote On the Origin of Species. This, of course, wasn't true. Charles Darwin never lived in Portsmouth. I meant to say Charles Dickens, who did live in the town but moved before his 3rd birthday, so he hadn't really found his favourite pub yet. A few hundred metres later, I said, and behind that hotel is the private gym where Arnold Schwarzenegger trained for several of his film appearances in the UK. Oh, which ones, they said. Unfortunately, I don't really know, but definitely all the Terminator films.
Oh, all of them, yeah.
And the Expendables, which was inspired by a night out in Plymouth. I thought I was going to get away with all my lies, but just then the father of the family arrived, and let's just say he knew his stuff. However, like a school kid saved by the bell, the tannoy came on, and it told us that all the cars had to be filled with their owners because they were about to disembark. I hastily made my apologies to the family for having to leave, and the family thanked me for their wonderful tour of Portsmouth. I have attempted to repeat this at various points in recent years, but none of them have had the same success.
No.
So I suppose I have to seek forgiveness from these people that I so convincingly duped. I recognise it probably wasn't a clever idea to tell fake facts. If they're listening to this, I'm sorry to the family for my deception, but at least my family found it very funny. Well, I mean, I think this is all fine and good, and so on, apart from putting on a fake moustache, going up to passport control.
No, don't do that.
Which almost, I'm sure, will be illegal. Yeah. Anyway, let's check in with Sister Susie, first of all, producing the show today.
Yes. Well, WizKid, yes, definitely don't wear a moustache when you go to passport control. That would not funny.
Unless you're 6, I suppose, in which case it's obviously a joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, maybe
I still
don't
wouldn't
do
do it. I still wouldn't do it. I like that you've confessed and you're only young. However, I do feel like you're a bit of a prankster, and the fact that you've tried this number of times, I just think I just find you a little bit annoying, maybe, and mainly because you called a couple of 40 old. So for that reason, I'm not going to forgive.
Brother Matthew.
Yes, teenagers all pretty annoying, Leo. I think we can all agree on that. So I'm going to forgive. Just because I love all the little facts that he came up with. They're all pretty good, weren't they? You know, pier made of balsa wood. I mean, who's going to believe that? If you're believing that, then obviously it's your fault for being a little bit thick. And also, I'd like to go to an amusements where you can win a chicken. I would definitely go to an amusements where you win chickens. So for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, all right. So, people's verdict, please. Do you forgive WizKid for his making up of facts about the South Coast? 61054, first word is Simon. The people's verdict, here it comes.
Tommy in Air says, got to forgive WizKid on this one. No one got harmed and I enjoyed all of his quirky original facts. But John says, not forgiven. I feel sorry for the family you were telling lies to. What if they turned up to the fair expecting a chicken as a prize or dressing up to get into Wimpy? Jane near Southampton, though, says, definitely forgiven. We too have had that same journey many times. I've lost count of the number of people who don't realise it's the Isle of Wight opposite Portsmouth and also think they've just seen the White Cliffs of Dover.
All right, OK, thank you for all of those. Your confession, please. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use it, you get a smart speaker.